I'd say the great thing about this show is it spans worldwide, whether it's just locally here in Ohio and Cleveland, the Northeast Ohio area, or throughout the country, or maybe throughout the world. And Zach, I have grown a new appreciation for anyone that follows not just the Guardians, but any team that they maybe grew up with, or maybe there's no logical connection why they like that team, but they do. But they don't live in the area in which that team plays, and trying to follow along, I felt like I was on a different planet for the last 10 days or so. And it's not that I'm seeing the outcomes. A lot of the time I'm following along with the game day experience, or listening to Hammy, or catching the rare glimpse on television. But I honestly felt like I was so disconnected. I don't know what's happening, even though I do. So I have this new appreciation for anyone that was doing this all the time, which I know many of our listeners actually do. So I don't know how you guys do it, but props to you for being able to. It's incredible.
Did you say it's unhealthy to live and die by the in-play run apostrophe or parenthesis S?
I don't want to bring that up again, but it's pretty bad, because it could be anything. It could legitimately be anything that happens. And when the team that you're following is on offense, you think of all of the great things that it could be. And oftentimes it turns into sacrifice fly guy, just fielder's choice ground out RBI. They'll certainly take the run, but it could have been, of all the scenarios I was envisioning, I was hoping it was going to be more than that, but whatever.
You missed a lot. You want me to catch you up to speed?
I would love that, actually. We could lead with the fact that this team is still good and has 5 All-Stars?
Should we play our favorite game? If someone would have told you back in March, rank them. Give me most surprising to least surprising.
In terms of now, or in terms of telling myself at the beginning of the year?
Telling yourself at the beginning of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I think David Fry would lead that list.
Of course.
Don't you think? Even in the moment, it's a little bit surprising, because I know the DH position is what it is, and you don't have a lot of dedicated DHs like you had 15, 20 years ago. But even more than just in this moment right now, you, Zach, I'm telling you, this is the calendar's, I don't know, April 1st. And you're going to have to guess whether this is an April Fool's Day joke or something else. David Fry is going to be an all-star this year. What's your reaction to that?
It's very surprising. When I asked you that, I didn't... Normally when you say, rank this or answer this, like it's supposed to be tough. I didn't intend for ranking these all-stars by surprising to least surprising to be a difficult task. I do think nobody was talking about Stephen Kwan in spring training like this guy was poised to be an all-star. And it's tough when you're not a guy who hits for power in the past. Your way to get onto the all-star team is to just hit for a really high average so that all your peers at least, or maybe fans, see, ooh, 365. Well, that gets my vote. You know, if he's hitting 308, like Josh Naylor was doing that last year, and he didn't get selected. So nobody was thinking about, you didn't think about Stephen Kwan as like an all-star player, a superstar, a guy who's going to be standing next to freaking Aaron Judge and Juan Soto in the outfield. That's going to look insane. So I think that's pretty surprising too. I think we lose sight of that. But certainly with Fry, he's kind of been quiet for the last month. I think he's got like a 650 OPS over the last month, which shows you how insane his first couple months were when he had an 1100 OPS, and he's right up there with Judge and Ohtani and Soto at the top of every leaderboard. And I know he wasn't playing every day at first, but it's cool that he gets rewarded with this, because he will always be more valuable to the manager and to his team than he is to like the outside world, because of the fact that a guy who is hitting that well can play that many positions, and those specific positions. It's one thing when you can bounce around the infield and like that. That's really helpful. When you can play catcher and corner infield and corner outfield, it gives your manager the freedom to do so many things. So I just think it's really cool for him. He also is from Irving, Texas, which is like 20 minutes from where this All-Star game is going to be played. So he'll have friends and family toasting to him all week at home. So it's a really cool story. The other, Naylor's not that surprising. Ramirez and Clase are just like automatic. It's like they signed up for like a 10-year All-Star subscription, and it's just renews year after year, an annual subscription. So
you've forgotten about this. Like, what was this charge? Right. Oh, that's right. I forgot I signed up for that.
But also the fact that they have 5, I think, is the most surprising part of this. That's a big number. They haven't had 5 since 2018. I think it's the 8th time they've had 5 or more in the last 60 years. And if you look at like the previous times they've had 5, it's those 90s teams. It's the recent run under Tito, and it's that weird-ass 2004 season that will never make sense. And that's it. So it's really impressive to have that many, and they're all deserving. And you could have found more if you needed them. Tim Herron and Hunter Gaddis and Cade Smith, and I don't know, you could maybe make a case for like Ben Lively or Tanner Bybee or something if they have another good week. I don't know. But it's just a lot of good things happening.
I know we tried not to get too caught up in the minutia of every day, and we try to take a little bit, zooming out a little bit just to have that more overhead shot, largely because of how often we record. We are a well-timed dinger away from maybe starting the show in a different direction or having a different outlook. The fact is, you did manage to take 2 or 3 from the Giants in this series, so that kind of pushes those conversations to the back burner, and we can have some fun with the 5 All-Stars. But even that aside, to be where they're at in the standings, there are years, and you reference it all the time, where they've had a lot of All-Stars, and it didn't make a lot of sense. This team should be rewarded for having the first half so far that they've had. To be one of the best teams in the American League, to be leading your division at the point of recording by 6 games over the Twins. And the Twins, yeah, they had a bad start, but they're hovering around 600 winning percentage here. You're 6 games better than them as we record this. You deserve to you look through the rosters, maybe there'll be some changes. You'll have guys that have to drop out or whatever. But to be sitting here with 5, this team deserves that number. You could say maybe Fry isn't the most deserving hitter on this list, but okay, remove him, and as you said, you could easily insert a reliever here. 5 is a really big number, but it's also a very deserving number when you consider what their record is today.
Hey, if they have a better week or the same week as the Orioles, they'll go into the All-Star break as the best team in the American League. I mean, that's who wouldn't have signed up for that? We can nitpick, and we will. This is not a perfect team. They have major issues that we will talk about plenty. Please, for the love of God, stop hanging on every word that the GM says in a public interview about the trade deadline.
What did he say?
It doesn't matter.
What did he say that has everybody all up and on?
Play the sounder of the rock doing It Doesn't Matter.
Why would you assume I have that?
Come on, what have you been doing the last 10 days?
I'm just supposed to have a sound clip of everything? What do you think, this is Family Guy and you could just make an obscure reference and something will drop? That's not how this works, dude.
You don't have a cutaway for that?
I got nothing.
But yeah, it's for all the talk we did in the first half about how is this happening? This doesn't really quite add up. This is strange. This is defying our expectations. At no point have they had that stretch where they lose 7 of 8, 10 of 13, 6 in a row? I mean, they haven't lost more than 3 in a row all season, and every time they have a little mini brief backslide, they rebound. Like, if you take a snapshot in time, they were 33-17, they were 16-6, they were like, it's always, the record's always impressive. It's never not been since they were, 3-0, 8-2 on that first road trip. So they've just been so consistently good And you're seeing the attendance numbers, you're seeing the All-Star, like people are taking notice. This is a season of momentum building. And you have to savor that, you have to cherish it, you have to appreciate it, and you have to make the most of it. And so I'm saying a lot of things at once here because I'm speaking to the front office in terms of like capitalizing on the situation, the players and coaches, like keep your head down and keep going and doing what you're doing, which they don't need me to tell them that. That's been their MO since day one and it's worked. And then the fans, we are guilty. We're all cynical. We all stick so much to what we think something is. We have this idea of how a season should go in our heads. And when it doesn't follow that script, we're like, this doesn't compute. Why is this happening? I know I'm going to be right in the end. And the team's going to regress or this player isn't going to keep playing. Like, no, young players develop. They improve. Teams find ways to win, and then they just repeat that formula as often as they can. You're seeing that. And it has every sign from the first 3+ months of this season has pointed to this being something special, something memorable. So the All-Star recognition is the latest example of that. And it sets up for what should be a second half where everyone should be on the edge of their seat, watching every game, and enjoying the journey.
But this is also a unique journey because, as you laid out, they could be the best team in the American League leading into the All-Star break. They have 5 worthy candidates to be All-Stars, maybe more, if you look at that reliever group. But with all of that, there's still this carousel in the rotation. There is still some good weeks for young players or even guys that are a little bit advanced age but just don't have tons of major league experience, and then handing the baton to somebody else to have another good week. And another guy that was a key instrumental factor, like, I don't know, Tyler Freeman has had some pretty big hits this year, but I still don't know if this guy's going to be a center fielder for where this team should be at in the standings. You have young players
explain who Angel Martinez and Jhonkensy Noel are.
That's where I'm going next. That's where I'm going next. Because then, yeah, we talked about Noel pretty extensively in our most recent Patreon show, which was about 3 months ago. We'll have a makeup later this month, and being at the trade deadline, we'll make it work. So don't worry, you didn't miss out on
17 emergency podcasts are coming your way.
They're all coming your way. You have Noel, you have Martinez, and both of those guys, Zach. And part of what I enjoy is actually getting to take a step back. I'm not really like hanging on every single pitch the way that I normally am, so I'm able to maybe have a different opinion than I would if I just watched this for the last 2 weeks. Martinez and Noel, as I come back into experiencing Guardians baseball, look like can't remove pieces of this roster right now. Noel looks like he fits really well in that right-handed stick. Play him against whatever lefty you want, or you need a pinch hit at bat late in the game where you're looking for some power. He really looks like he's going to fit that mold. I don't know what the next couple of weeks are going to bring, but it really looks like this guy could help this club. And then take that a step further. Angel Martinez, not only does that look like he could be a main factor for this club initially to me, but I come back and they're hitting him second, Zach. What does that say about what Stephen Vogt in this front office and the coaches think about Angel Martinez?
Well, he has 8 walks and 2 strikeouts in his first 6 games.
Great.
So he reminds me of he looks like Ozzy Albies up there, kind of with that stance. I don't know. And his size.
I love when we do this. Looks like one of the better players in the game.
Yeah.
Every time we see somebody.
He looks the part, but everyone they've called up does. I was talking to Daniel Schneeman over the weekend, and he was saying that he's had family members, all his family's out west, and he's got family members saying we bought tickets for the Dodgers series in early September. Can we meet up then? And he's like, dude, I'm going one day at a time here. It's a whirlwind for all these kids. And the best way to succeed in the majors, because Schneemann got called up and was hitting second, hitting fourth, playing all these different positions that he hasn't played a ton. And he looks the part. Like, he looks like a seasoned veteran out there. And the best thing for all of them is just tunnel vision. Just be laser focused on that day and try to do everything you can not to let the moment be too overwhelming. So it leads to something I think we need to talk about for a minute, which is so many people have asked. You know, one day it's Noel's up, then Rodriguez, Martinez, Schneemann. Like, what are... Tana was up here. This is just a showcase, right? Like, they're just getting these guys up here. They can get a little taste of the majors, and then other teams see that, and they're like, ooh, now we want to trade for Jose Tena because he got 6 at-bats in the no. Okay, and the best way I can explain it, because 29 of 30 teams now have computers in their offices, and they are able to watch video of all these players when they're in the minor leagues or the major leagues. They're able to break down the data and the metrics, and they have all the information they could possibly need about all of these players, whether they've been in the majors for 3 seasons or 0 seasons. Showcasing is not the same thing. Like, if you get a guy up and he goes and he hits 700 for a month, like, sure, maybe that'll convince some teams to trade for him that weren't already convinced. What this is it's the Guardians trying to figure out what they need. They need to figure out a recipe for the second half and the playoffs. Someone asked me today, if they were facing a right-hander in game 1 of the playoffs, what's the starting 9? That is a really difficult question to answer. Today, you probably say Angel Martinez is in there somewhere, Schneemann's in there somewhere. You're probably trying to figure out, okay, maybe, like, assuming Brennan's healthy, him versus Freeman. I don't know if Noel cracks the lineup. Is Fry in there? Like, it's kind of confusing, right? It's a little tricky. There's a lot of different pieces, and I don't know how they fit. So what they're trying to do is figure out who should be part of this. Because if they go acquire a hitter, that's going to take some at-bats away from some people. When Brennan comes back from the injury list, that's going to take some at-bats away from guys currently getting at-bats. Is Freeman going to have playing time cut into? Is Rocchio going to lose some playing time? Is Arias going to head down to Columbus? Like, there's a lot of questions to ask here. Like, what Noel is doing is great. What Martinez is doing is great. And the best thing they can do is keep playing those guys for the next few weeks and see how they fit. See if you feel confident in them getting important at-bats in September and October. What those guys do over the next few weeks is not going to make a difference on the trade market. That is not going to be the difference between being able to acquire Mason Miller and not. What it is the difference between you feeling as comfortable as you can in the span of 3.5 weeks about those guys getting important at-bats and not.
And if it does anything to the trade market, it's a happy accident. But you're doing this because you need to know if Angel Martinez is someone that's going to help you win games this year. You need to know if it's worthy keeping Gabriel Arias up here over John Kenzie Noel or Daniel Schneemann or anyone else that their roster spot is going to be in limbo, Rocchio, for the next several weeks. And they're going to have to make another tough choice when Brennan is ready to come back, which it seems like it's going to be very soon. And even when they make that move, as you're alluding to, then you're still dividing up at-bats between guys at the major league level, even after you've made a decision on somebody sitting the bench and somebody heading to Columbus. It's also, right now it feels like a good problem to have because Martinez, forget what the results look like for a second. The quality of the at-bats looks like a major league hitter. He has good at-bat after good at-bat after good at-bat. And what I like about Martinez, there are even times within an at-bat where maybe he doesn't take a good swing, but then comes back and it doesn't affect the next pitch after that and the next pitch after that. And he looks like he's able to adjust within an at-bat. I've seen the same thing from Schneemann. And I'm not expecting these guys to all carry 800 OPSs. I really don't think that's going to happen, all of them. But I'm just so impressed by how they look in the batter's box, that this moment doesn't look too big for them. And I know it's whatever, it's the beginning of July. You'd hope that nothing looks too big for anybody that you're calling up. But still, I compare that to a guy like Arias, who had a really tough night on Friday night, both defensively and at the plate. Whether it's swinging and missing or striking out or hitting into double plays and miscues defensively. And I'm wondering, for a team that, yes, also you're trying to win, but you're also trying to reward guys for doing things the right way, for playing the game the right way. And right now, who looks like they deserve the big league roster spot? I know you could make a case that it's better for maybe Martinez to play every day or Noel to play every day, and you want to continue that development. But I don't know. It seems like Martinez and Schneemann are two guys that I want at the major league level right now. And Noel certainly looks like he can play a role for me in a spot that I desperately need somebody to play that role. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Let's be the first podcast / I want to lump like radio in with this too. The first sports talk platform to ever commend hitting coaches. All we ever do is rip hitting coaches. No one's ever like done a whole episode on praise for a hitting coach, and we don't need to do that. But for years, what did we say? We said, man, this organization, they call up starting pitchers, and the jump to the major leagues is never too daunting. In 2019, they had injuries all over the place. They call up Plesac. They call up Savali. Those guys look like they belong. They called up Bieber the year before. He was really good for a rookie. That's been their MO. Give the hitting team credit. They have called up hitters, and there hasn't been an adjustment period. I mean, these guys look like they belong from day one. It's really impressive. And, I don't know what the magic formula is for that. I don't know that there is one. I think the hitting approach overall this season has been great. I mean, there's no surprise. We've talked plenty about how not just home runs, but the team hitting just with more authority in general. And I think they rank 6th in the majors in runs per game now. They were 27th last year. So it's masked some of, you look at this lineup and it's like you've got star players hitting first, third, and fourth. You've got, you've got 4 all-stars in top 5 spots in your lineup. And after that, it's been a jumbled mess, right? You have like Bo Naylor was struggling. Rocchio has not really hit a ton. Freeman's been cold. But they've mixed guys in enough where it's been someone different all the time. And so it's covered up for some of those deficiencies where maybe 6 through 9 is, on a whole, it's not great. But individually, you have different guys contributing at different times. And they've ridden the hot hand here with certain guys. I mean, we could still be watching Ramon Laureano and Estevan Florial, and thankfully we're not.
Guardians take 2 of 3 from San Francisco. They take another series. It wasn't always pretty in this series. One constant that seems to have plagued them recently is the lack of hits with runners in scoring position, or just really with anybody on base to keep a line moving the way that they had been so beautiful in those positions early in the season. But that's sort of to be expected. You just don't think a team is clutch and is going to be that clutch throughout the entire season. It's just the nature of the game. Ebbs and flows. But still, you got to find a way to win even when those runs aren't coming. And despite the fact that Friday night didn't go well, they've managed to come back, take 2 of 3. Bo Naylor, well-timed home run. And it's interesting where you have vote 2 key decisions here. You had the one on Saturday night when he decided to take Logan Allen out of the game. You had a pinch hit opportunity. This one seems a lot easier, but he has his options on the bench. He decides to go to Bo Naylor, and he comes through. People weren't too pleased with the move on Saturday night. I think everybody's very pleased with the one on Sunday night. Where do you think this team's at? Where offensively, you haven't seen a lot of those big key base hits here recently, but if you're following along with these games, they're still having the opportunities. They're still making pitchers throw a lot. They're having some quality at-bats. It's just the offense here is slowed down because the big base hits, those runners with scoring position, they're not scoring a lot.
It's going to happen to every team. It's baseball. It's 162 games. You're going to have ebbs and flows with those timely hits, or with getting the strikeout when you need it instead of the fly ball that results in a sac fly. Like those things, just the sequencing, the timing of everything dictates so much in a baseball season. I think, first of all, pinch hitting Bo Naylor for Austin Hedges in the 6th inning of a close game is not, it's not rocket science. I would hope 30 of 30 managers would make that decision. Austin Hedges would make that decision. Kudos to Bo, who has looked much better at the plate over the last few weeks, and they need that. They know the formula to win games. I think that's the bottom line here. You're right. They make the opposing pitcher work. They did it to Kyle Harrison on Saturday. And they know, like it's not a secret that the starting rotation is the weak link of this roster right now. Like, they know getting through 5 with anyone not named Tanner Bybee or Ben Lively is a gift. And so you can't afford to not go to the bullpen when you really need to. Obviously, it didn't work out Saturday. Scott Barlow was responsible for those 3 runs scoring. But, it's tough. You don't want to lean on the bullpen so much that it eventually collapses. But you also, the recipe to win games. You have to follow that script. You'd rather let your bullpen have an off night than watch Logan Allen struggle again in the 5th inning and not be able to get through a lineup a 3rd time, or Carlos Carrasco, or like we've seen that time and time again. So that's just why it's so important that it's not even so. We spend so much time talking about they need a starting pitcher because in October, we stare at the pitching matchups and we just assume that, oh well, it's Garrett Cole's too easy because he'd have the advantage over just about anybody. But you see it's this starter against Cal Quantrill, and you think it's like, well, that guy's better, so that team's gonna win. And it's like, there's so many other things at play here, especially in a playoff series where you can have a quick hook and you can lean on your bullpen more because there's more off days. But they need starting pitching help to get through the season. That's what I think kind of gets lost sometimes when we say, would it be great to acquire an ace or number 2? Of course, because that helps you in the season, it helps you in the postseason. But they need, the reason why Matthew Boyd and Spencer Howard are here is because they just need bodies. They need people. And that's why it can't just be targeting the very top tier arms. It has to be targeting everybody. If they can go get a Kikuchi from the Blue Jays, that is the name that has made the most sense to me in terms of easily available and wouldn't cost you a ton because he's a rental. But he's just a guy who could, can pitch for you every 5 days, and you hope he goes 6 innings. They need people like that. And I think that's the key. Is this formula is great, and they're following the formula, and it's resulting in wins, but you just wonder how long that can work.
And right now,
it can't be early July, and every other day you're thinking about who's not available in the bullpen. That's a tough way to play.
It is, but right now, this, as you laid out, this is the way they have to play. They don't have any other choice. You can say they can't do this, but they have to. Right now, until there's a better option presented, the best option is, and it's why I was not frustrated with the move on Saturday to take Logan Allen out of the game. Yeah, he's been pitching pretty well in that game, and he had 7 strikeouts? 9? How many strikeouts did he have? 9. So, yeah, that's great, but pitchers are rolling until they aren't. And I thought, and it's interesting, we can talk just about what happened afterwards, but let's just focus on the move right now, or the decision right now. I thought this was a case of Logan Allen's having one of his better starts, despite what's happening with his command, one of his better starts of the season in terms of missing bats and probably feeling pretty good about himself. You'd hate to, as he's nearing that 100-pitch mark, to then have him serve up a meatball and that all gets ruined. That all gets taken off the table. He doesn't get a chance to feel like he's made any progress in this game. Oh, yeah, you're also trying to win. And I know Barlow can be an adventure, but still the stuff is really good. It's just a matter of is he going to be able to get it in the zone where he wants or even close to try to draw a swing. I don't have any problem with going to the best bullpen in baseball in a case like that. I have none. And we're not talking, if it's Bybee and you're pulling him out early, okay, that's a better conversation. But Logan Allen, as was demonstrated after the game, is barely holding on to a roster spot here at the major league level. Barlow has to do the job. That's the bottom line. You hand the ball to your reliever, and sometimes they burn you, but it's still, they have to do their part of the job. And I would, 10 times out of 10, I'd hand the ball to anybody in that bullpen in that situation. And I had no problem with it at all.
No, like the formula is great. It would be even better if the formula included more pitchers who could go 6. That's all.
Or even comfortably get through the 5th.
Yeah.
I doubt, but this is me from the outside, I doubt that the choice to demote Logan Allen had anything to do with him being upset after the game. Although I had seen some of that come in, whether it's through social media, Discord, or wherever.
I mean, they acquired Spencer Howard before the game. Like, that was not... He was heading to the major league roster regardless. This was... They make decisions days and days in advance. This is not a spur-of-the-moment thing. Who else would he have replaced?
Yeah. To be honest, I'd rather a pitcher be pissed off that I took him out of the game. That's okay with me. As a manager, that's kind of what I'm getting paid for, to be able to massage that afterwards. But I would rather the player have some fire in the pit of their stomach to say, what are you doing? I was just getting ready to get this fool out.
Yeah, you don't want the pitcher to be like, oh, thank God. Could really use a juice box.
Get me the hell out of here. I really don't have any problem with that. With just being upset, being pulled out of that situation. Good, it means there's still that fire within you. There's still a belief that you're going to get that guy out. So I really don't have any problem with that. Handle it afterwards. I don't know if they did. Did they say anything about how he took that demotion? I got to imagine he wasn't too pleased about it.
Yeah, so first of all, he's not the only... Like, Tanner Bybee is upset every single time he gets pulled in the middle of an inning or at the end of an inning. Go watch his reactions. Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is it's been frustrating for... Like, Logan has not been shy about how frustrating of a season it's been. I think everyone senses it. You know, it's human nature. Like, they know how much the rotation has struggled to chew up innings. And they're desperately trying. Like, that's the number one thing a starter wants to do, is just survive into the 6th, into the 7th. And they haven't been able to do that. And, like, you know, Logan sees Tristan struggling. They see Carrasco. He's been okay of late, but, like, our standards are pretty low here. Like, everybody's aware of the rotation's shortcomings. And they want to be able to do their part to help fix that. And so I think it's doubly frustrating when, you know, it's not like there's 4 aces in the rotation and 1 weak link. It's been a grind for everybody. So, you know, who knows what this is going to look like in a month, let alone in like 3 months. But there's very little... I don't know. Like, it's a blank canvas at this point. You can write Tanner Bybee. I think you want to write Gavin Williams. Ben Lively, I guess. He'll keep defying expectations, but there's room for some productive pitchers.
Stuff Plus doesn't have to dictate what happens in a season. as is evidenced by the man you just mentioned, Ben Lively, who's actually below, I believe, in Stuff Plus where Logan Allen is. Both of them in the 70s. It's not good. But for Logan Allen, they need the pitching. I know they're desperately hoping that he goes to AAA and figures it out. What is the reclamation project? What does he need to work on down there? Is it mechanics? I mean, because to me, the most alarming thing is the fact that the stuff hasn't been as good. I know he nibbles at times and gets himself into bad counts, but even below that, you still see some stuff that needs to be worked on as far as stuff goes to get him back to where he was even at last year.
Well, and it's like deja vu, because remember when he was sent down last year, remember he had like a few starts where he was up into the 90s in this pitch count in like the 4th inning, 5th inning, similar to what he did against the Giants. And it's the result of, if you don't have that put away stuff, guys can foul off pitches, drive up the pitch count. You nibble because you're trying to get them to chase because you don't have good enough stuff to overpower them. They're going to hit you hard. It's just a bad formula. So it's they label it as like consistency. You just need to be more consistent. Now, what does that actually mean? I don't know. It could be approach and mindset as much as it is just pure stuff and mechanics. But that's tough to change during the season. It's the same thing with McKenzie, where it's like, it's really hard to just overhaul your entire game plan when you're pitching every 5 days. When you have an off season to totally adjust things, maybe you tweak a pitch grip and it changes the shape and look of a pitch, and then that makes a different pitch more effective, and then it's, you're strategizing how to sequence your pitch. Like, everything can change, and you can be a completely different pitcher year to year. It's really hard to be a completely different pitcher week to week. And it's not to write those guys off either, especially with McKenzie, who we've seen be a dominant pitcher before.
They also can't. They can't write them off.
Yeah,
that's why they have to. They have to.
Tough to trust.
They have to look at Boyd. They have to look at Howard. They got to see what sticks even for the next 2 weeks, because that's just the disarray of this rotation. And I was looking at it just because I was curious. I couldn't remember what it was last year. 78 was the Stuff Plus this year for Logan Allen, and I believe it was in the mid-80s last year. So stuff not as crypt. And I'd have to really dig in on this, because that's just an average of all your pitches. Maybe you aren't throwing your best pitches enough, and that will drag down your Stuff Plus score. Or maybe you're behind in the count and you've got to throw a fastball, which is not as good as your other stuff, a little bit more often. So that, again, could drag down your Stuff Plus score. And, of course, with any plus number, you're trying to get to 100, which is league average on the stuff. But it hasn't been as good. Command as well has been an issue for him, and it's put him in some bad spots and high pitch counts and not getting deep into games. And right now, just like McKenzie, it's putting you in a bad spot now 2 times a week, where you're having to count on that bullpen, which is great, and I would love to continue to count on them. But it is a little bit unfair. You gotta, even if it's another inning, consistently get you to the 5th at least, not feel like you're going to need to rescue somebody in the 3rd or 4th. It's tough spot to be, even if they've succeeded in being in that spot.
So Matthew Boyd threw a bullpen session on Saturday afternoon. And you would have thought, I don't know, Prince was performing on the infield. Like, they had coaches, teammates, front office members, trainers lining the dugout, watching this guy throw 91-mile-an-hour sinkers and 80-mile-an-hour changeups. And, like, it was just like 1 inning, I think. I think it was, I don't know how many pitches, maybe like 25, 30. And I think it was Brennan, Hedges, Arias, and they were the hitters. Fry was the catcher. And, like, I don't know how much you gain from that. I mean, kudos to this guy who had Tommy John surgery like 1 year ago and is already at this stage. And I don't want to make too much of this. I really don't think that let's get to this. I've seen a lot of people freaking out about, with Boyd and with Spencer Howard, like they're just setting everybody up to not make a big trade for a starting pitcher, and like they're just going to go with these guys. Here's the thing. Nobody is more aware of the need for a starting pitcher than the people running the team. Like, I get it. If you're a passionate fan, you want to see your team win. They haven't won a World Series since your grandparent was in diapers. I get it. They understand what their weakness is. They are going to try to fix that. They have been talking to teams. Just because Mike Chernoff and Chris Antonetti go do radio hits with national radio and they don't explicitly say, yeah, like we've got offers out to 3 teams for their number 2 starters, doesn't mean that they're not going to do something. They might not do something. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. We got to see how this market shakes out. And we're not going to know more until after the draft. That is one key thing everybody keeps hammering home to me. But them signing Boyd and Spencer Howard and trading for Spencer Howard or claiming him is not like, there's no ulterior motive here. They don't make moves to like satisfy the fan base or to make not trading for someone not look as bad. Like they're literally just trying to add bodies any way they can. And the fact that they were ready to move on from McKenzie and Logan Allen for like shots in the dark tells you their level of desperation. They know they need starting pitching help. So like you have to see what happens. Like they have plenty of ammunition to trade for someone. Yes, it's going to be tricky. Like there aren't a ton of like clear-cut sellers yet. That will happen in the next few weeks. But even last year when the Guardians were a clear-cut seller, they were not a clear-cut seller until like July 29th. So you have to give it time. And
you got to have sellers, and you also have to have healthy arms. I mean, I know I joked about it, but Chernoff has said some of the guys we were even looking at are already on the injured list. So what are you supposed to do? It's a safety net. It's improving a safety net. And even if it means you're just putting some patches into what the safety net was already there, fine. I don't have any problem. I would have more problem if you didn't sign someone like Boyd and then he caught on with somebody else and then he proved effective in September for somebody. Even if it's giving you 3 or 4 innings, I will happily take the innings. That's fine. It's a similar sort of situation with Carlos Carrasco. Before the season even began, we said that, hey, it's a feel-good thing, but it's also just improving the floor a little bit if things don't go to plan. Well, guess what? I said a couple of weeks ago that it felt like a built-in loss every time this guy pitches, and maybe that's still the case. They won today. This dude has been super important just because he can take the ball every 5th day. Even if it's not the greatest performance, at least he's doing that for you. That is super important.
Yeah, it's not like in 2016. Remember when Chris Antonetti was talking the whole month of July about how great the reliever market was and how it was a slam dunk that they were going to acquire an ace reliever? Like, this isn't... Never listen to what these people say. It doesn't tell you anything, and it'll just drive you crazy. So I think... Look, a team that knows it needs starting pitching is not going to be naive enough to think that adding a dude who isn't even going to be returning from Tommy John surgery for at least another month is going to be their savior. They get it. Okay? So I think, and that doesn't mean they're going to trade for a starting pitcher. And if they don't, then they should be ripped for that unless they find some other creative way to round out this roster, whether that means acquiring another reliever, they can trade for another hitter. Like there are a lot of avenues to get better. And we talked at the beginning of the podcast why it's so important that they capitalize on the momentum and that they do that. But this is like my advice to everybody listening, because I've seen the discussion. For your own sanity, do not read into what any executive is saying about trade stuff on July 7th or whatever it is. It's not worth it. I mean, forget the date. Like that applies to 365 days a year and 366 on leap years, but especially in July.
So what you're saying is nobody in that front office is going, Boyd, we got him. Can hang up the phones now. We are good. Don't think a single person is saying anything like that.
They also have to make the number 1 pick in the draft in a week. They've got their hands full. But really, from what I've heard, a lot of the current talks are just vague generalities, trying to get a sense of what other teams are thinking, directions they're going, who might be available. And then post-draft, you'll get more concerted efforts to figure out what makes sense. And then that takes time too. So I specifically asked somebody about, like, remember when they traded for Brad Hand? And that happened, I think, like right after the All-Star break. Or maybe even, it was weirdly early. I was told just league-wide, like, that a deal like that's not happening. Like, it's gonna have to be closer to the deadline. I know Savali was traded already. I think that was a matter of the Brewers, like the Guardians, desperately needing pitching, and the Rays realizing that Savali was not helping their efforts whatsoever. So they found a middle infield prospect they liked, and they made the swap. But I think that's going to be the rarity here, and you're going to see a lot more deals closer to the deadline.
And the other thing with just picking up as many arms as you can in a position of the Guardians, you never know who's going to help you, even if it's not an obvious helping you win on any given day performance. Someone like Pedro Avila has given the Guardians some big innings in losses that you didn't have to hand the ball to one of your big boys, which pretty much they all are. But you didn't have to hand the ball to give innings to somebody that you'd rather save for a closer game, whether you're down by a run or you're tied or ahead. And so at the time, we didn't say anything about Pedro Avila, but he's come in here and helped settle down some games that could have gotten more out of control. And who is that? That is somebody that is helping you win in a very unique way, just maybe not on the day that he pitches. But you just need to cycle through guys. And if there's anybody this organization might be able to stumble into an answer on, even if it's briefly, it's this organization. I mean, hell, we all forgot about Beatty, but Beatty was in here giving them some big performances in the first couple weeks of the season before you kicked him to the curb, rightfully so. But before you did that, this is just when you're in the position like the Guardians are, where the starting pitching is, the answers are not coming easily. Good. Just cycle through bodies, see who you might hit on, even if it's for a week or two, to get you to the next answer, And you and I are not going to be upset about it because we realize that doing anything like Howard or signing a Boyd is not going to impact what they do with the deadline. It's going to have zero impact. Everything else is going to operate outside of that. But I honestly think most people understand that. I don't know who we're yelling at right now. Maybe it's just us yelling at each other to make ourselves feel
Why are you yelling
better.
at me?
Why are we doing this? The good news is you did get Gavin Williams back. So Allen out, Williams in. The performance wasn't all that great. What were the takeaways from Williams' first performance back up here?
I think similar to the Boyd conversation where, and it's a little different because one is a young flamethrower and the other is a guy coming back from elbow surgery who isn't a hard thrower, but you can't just bank on him being the savior. I think the hope is that as you're reaching those fall months where a lot of guys are on fumes, some guys might need a breather. Guys are pitching past where the innings limits they had previously, especially in the bullpen. Like, we said it in recent weeks, but Herron and Gaddis and Cade Smith, like, this is all going to be new for them. These aren't guys who have made 70 appearances in a season. So a good thing could be that Gavin Williams is hitting his stride when a lot of guys are getting tired. And so that could benefit you. But what it does mean is that in early July, he is far from a finished product. He didn't throw a slider. He threw 10 curveballs. He threw 64 fastballs and cutters. That's a
Yeah,
guy
I
who's
wanted to
searching
ask.
for command, searching for feel. And it's
I
going to
wanted
take
to
some
ask
time,
you
I
about
think.
that. Did they say anything about because he didn't throw a cutter last year in the major leagues, and now he's throwing the cutter. He didn't throw the slider. My first thing was, is there something in the slider that could cause some sort of pain or some sort of alarm that they want him to do away with now? And they need another pitch that's going to move glove side. And if you can't do the slider, this is all my speculation. Have they said anything?
No, and they won't as it pertains to injury or
Can you get in there and
anything.
grab somebody by the collar and shake them around a little
Yeah.
bit?
Um, that's why I'm really curious to see his next start, because what do you take away and what do you like? It truly is kind of still spring training for him, and it's going to be a work in progress, and that's why it's insane all the moving parts in this rotation. You've got Bybee, who's rock solid, and you need a good start from him every time. You need innings from him. You've got Lively, who has been so consistent, but also has never had a season like this. So you're still kind of wondering, like, you want to make sure he has everything he needs to keep going at this rate. You got Gavin Williams, who's like it's basically March 30th for him. And then you've got Carlos Carrasco, who's 37, and you're praying can get through 5 innings. You've got Spencer Howard, who, like, I don't even know if they've officially met him yet. I know he was around the team this weekend, but hey man, nice to meet you. What do you throw? Okay, get out there against Detroit, I guess. So it's like everybody has so much going on. I don't like Gavin Williams. You imagine him as this beast because of his size, and he just looks like someone who can go 200 innings. We said he was gonna. You still think he's gonna rack up 200 strikeouts? Is that still on the table?
You wait till you see the second half. Unbelievable.
So it's like you have to adjust your expectations a little bit because you just don't know where he's at. Like, he missed so much time, and to play catch up in the middle of the season, it's tough.
We talked about how it can be difficult to fix mechanics in the middle of a season. And with McKenzie, we were encouraged by the fact that the velocity was good, but everything else was so out of whack. That's what led to him getting sent down to the minor leagues to work in a less pressure-packed atmosphere to try to get that on track for hopefully August and September. And then I look at Gavin Williams. The velocity was great. Nothing to complain about in terms of fastball velocity. This dude was hanging around 97 on average with the heater. And this is someone, when he first came up last year, remember we said, where's the elite velocity? And as the major league season played out, we saw that kind of come back. The four-seam fastball at the end of last year ended up averaging 95.7, 96.8. So the velocity is actually up a little bit. But what I wonder is the mechanic thing, and maybe it's also when you're not having the slider, which was performing extremely well last year, our hitter's able to zero in on the four-seamer a little bit better. Or is there something there at play where, because you don't have the full repertoire, it's going to make the fastball play down a little bit? But when I looked at just vertical movement, the four-seamer didn't have it wasn't elite last year, but it was pretty much average. And this year, the vertical movement, it fell a little bit more, didn't have quite the same carry on the four-seam, staying up. And I imagine with a ball that's at 97 miles per hour, that definitely helps. And it also had a little bit more horizontal movement than it had last year, so less vertical movement, dropped a little bit more, and it moved a little bit more side to side, so in this case it would be arm side. I'm wondering, does that speak to maybe the mechanics are a little bit off? Because it was tailing a little bit more, didn't quite have the same vertical movement, and it kind of follows what you said. I want more data. I want to see this play out a little bit more before,
man.
Right, before I start reading too much into, oh no, it's something in the mechanics, or ooh, he can't throw the slider. I need a little bit more data in the set before I start making any sweeping declarations about what he is or what he needs to fix or anything like that.
Isn't this all easier if you just add Max Scherzer? Okay,
Are you
maybe
saying
not
like?
Scherzer. He's old. How about Kevin Gausman?
Are you saying Max Scherzer? Or are you saying like the equivalent of Max Scherzer in any given year?
Yeah, go add an
Yeah.
ace, and then you can
Yeah.
run all these starting pitching experiments, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, sure. What? Why not? And what's standing in their way other than just teams not deciding they want to give up their players, or the guys
Well,
that are of that level, of that ilk, are not healthy enough to be able to help you? So what?
well,
What?
showcasing Noel. I mean, the way he's been hitting, they can go get anybody now.
Yeah. And then you'll know you have Bazana in a few weeks, and everything will be great, right? You can deal more off of that middle infield pile.
It is crazy. The conversations that we're having about this team that we never would have imagined we'd be having. We thought they'd be trading Bieber this month. Where should they have
How
picked?
silly.
Like 9th or 10th in the draft?
This is why we do say this at the beginning of the year. Just imagine how silly we're going to be arguing over this stuff by the time the All-Star break even rolls around. We'll be saying, why were we even concerned with this? And why weren't we focused on that? Every year.
Every year. We're stupid.
Confirmed.
Shout out to Joe's Barbecue, Kansas City.